What is up, everybody? Hope you're doing well today. Today's video is a news roundup video, and we've got some interesting topics, some very exciting ones, of which I can't wait to dig into, such as The Sandman Season 2, but also some unfortunate news, I guess maybe not for so many people, because whenever I talk about Westworld on the channel, some people are like really into it, some people are like, it fell off after Season 1 kind of thing, but yes, unfortunately, HBO's Westworld has been cancelled. We're also going to talk about how Warner Brothers Discovery is doubling down on its future with another earnings call. We have comments from David Zaslav and what this will mean for the coming years. Speaking of the coming years, we also have to talk about Nexstar's acquisition of the CW and the recent chatter with regards to the actual state of the network, but recent comments have made the future a little bit more concerning. So let's get right into that. But if you are enjoying this content on the channel, it'd really support me and mean a lot to me if you just hit that thumbs up button, maybe consider subscribing for more news updates, reviews, and breakdowns just like this. But let's start with Westworld today. So The Hollywood Reporter says the following: HBO has switched off Westworld. The network has decided to cancel the sci-fi drama after its recent 4th season. It's an unexpected fate for the series that was once considered one of HBO's biggest tentpoles, an acclaimed mystery box drama that racked up 54 Emmy nominations, including a supporting actress win for Thandie Newton. Last month, co-creator Jonathan Nolan said in an interview that he hoped HBO would give the series a 5th season to wrap up the show's ambitious story, which has chronicled a robot uprising that changed the fate of humanity. We always planned for a 5th and final season, Nolan said. We are still in conversations with the network. We very much hope to make them. Co-creator Lisa Joy likewise said the series has always been working towards a specific ending. Jonah and I have always had an ending in mind that we hope to reach. We have not quite reached it yet. And, you know, coming off of hearing that, of which I already knew because I cover Westworld on the channel, some of you may have tuned into my reviews, this is the most frustrating thing of all, just as a fan. Again, I guess I'm not speaking to everyone here. Some of you just may be really indifferent to it. Maybe you once were a fan after Season 1. I know the popular comment says Season 2 got very convoluted, which it kind of did get convoluted, but there was still a lot of decent things in this show. They definitely streamlined it a bit more in Season 3 and 4. The addition of Aaron Paul was fantastic, but for it to go right before they were telling the ultimate closure to the story is just a bit sucky, I think. However, I did say in my finale review for Season 4, and I think a lot of people drew this out of that final episode, that it could arguably have been left off there, albeit there was a smidge more to do to kind of close that door for good. But at the same time, just going back to that first point, the way Season 4 ended, I guess I won't get into mega spoilers for those who still plan on watching the series, it ended in such a way where you could close the book, but there was still most certainly, as Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan said, that there was more to do. They've always had this certain ending in mind, and even though that Season 4 ending could close the book there, they were going to really, you know, close the book, press it down, put it back on the shelf. Now it's just kind of like the last page still has yet to be flicked over, but you've still read most of the book, if you know what I mean. It's that kind of feeling, and that's okay in one way, but at the same time, it's like, man, what actually would have happened next season? But from Deadline, they report something additional. They say it was bad news for anyone associated with the show, led by creators Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, who had been hoping and advocating for another chapter, but for the main cast, there was some silver lining. I hear they will be paid for Season 5, regardless of the fact that it will not be produced. According to sources, the cancellation decision came down to the same criteria Netflix uses for their renewal decisions: viewership versus cost. The cancellation comes a day after a challenging quarterly earnings report by HBO parent Warner Brothers Discovery. During the call that followed, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav revealed plans to raise the company's savings target to $3.5 billion, up $500 million over its initial target. The grand experiment of creating something at any cost is over, and that will lead us into our second story with everything like that. And this, at the end of the day, still comes under Warner Brothers Discovery, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, but what I'm trying to say is I do believe, personally, before this merger happened with Warner Brothers and Discovery, that HBO's Westworld would have likely have got that final season, even if it was just, you know, a couple of episodes shorter. I reckon they would have been bankrolled to finish the chapter, as they say. But with Warner Brothers Discovery, and if you've been following the channel, we keep very close with the inner workings and the future that they are planning for DC and all kinds of things. you know, and you must have heard by now that they've been trimming so many shows, they've been cutting so many shows, canceling so many shows, and passing on many more as well. They're like, okay, Batman, the new animated series, Cape Crusader, nah. Constantine, nah. Madame X, nah. J.J. Abrams' Demi Monde, no. The list honestly just keeps growing there. The list also expands for shows that they don't want to renew and kind of cancel, and yeah, you get the idea. That's likely why Westworld won't be coming back for another season, although I am acknowledging the decline in viewership. It is understandable in that way. What I'm just trying to make a point of here is that the previous regime probably would have been like, okay, have like 6 episodes, wrap it up, but under Warner Brothers Discovery, they're like, no, I'm sorry, we need this money. But let's get into that second story. Let's get into Zaslav, this new earnings report. We spoke about the previous quarterly earnings report before, where we got quite a few interesting updates. It also kind of provided some reassurance. Zaslav spoke about the next 10-year solid plan they have at DC. He spoke about how the Batman and whatnot exemplifies what they want to do there. So that was reassuring fans at the time for Matt Reeves' Batverse, and then shortly afterwards, there was a first look deal signed for Matt Reeves. So now we had another one. So let's start off with this first quote. He said, "A significant amount of change is required," Zaslav said on the call. "In fact, we see this as presenting a meaningful opportunity, one that we have seized wholeheartedly, to look inside each of our businesses and really determine what's working and what's not working." Which, you know, I can't blame the guy for saying. At the end of the day, merger has happened. He's the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery. He is looking at a plan to be like, I need to make money. And I need to make a lot of money. What have we got on our chessboard? What are our remaining pieces? What are our kings and queens? What can we capitalize upon in terms of franchises? And that is the key word, franchises. This guy wants to smack the hammer on the anvil and really go ham on just the Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. He mentions names like that. DC franchises, of course, like the biggest ones being Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. And more or less, he is just really not about keeping around things that aren't exactly doing so great or just really being experimental with certain other things. He's kind of putting that to the side, even experimental ventures, and being like, no, we are just going to focus on the most popular things, which is understandable, but in another way, you know, you do want to explore other characters as well, because then they'll never technically get a chance to shine if you always feature on the A-list things. Not that I'm against the A-list franchises, characters, and such as Superman and whatnot, but it is an interesting conversation to be had. So this continues by saying, Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav says, when removing shows from streaming platforms, they didn't take one show off a platform that would help us in any way. He adds they will replace those shows with content that has a chance to be more successful with a larger audience. We're going to have a real focus on franchises. We haven't had a Superman movie in 13 years. We haven't done a Harry Potter movie in 15 years. The DC movies and the Harry Potter movies provided a lot of the profits of Warner Brothers Motion Pictures over the last 25 years. And as you may be thinking in your head, wait, that doesn't sound right. You're right. And that's because a lot of the internet is clowning on him because, you know, obviously Man of Steel was 9 years ago, not 13 years ago, with regards to a Superman movie. Fantastic Beasts are technically installments of the Harry Potter franchise. By the way, you know, reading between the lines, I get what Zaslav is saying. He wants to just, we need to get back on Superman. It's been quite a long time. Henry Cavill is coming back. Harry Potter, I know there's, rumors and whatnot. I think they wanted to explore an HBO Max show. I could be wrong about that, but some kind of episodic thing and a movie, bringing that all back. They would likely adapt The Cursed Child into a movie format. I do get what they're doing there. You may disagree with it, but it is a money maker, and they are probably looking at options like, how do we capitalize on the Wizarding World in live action once again? Zaslav continues to say in this call, so a focus on the franchise, one of the biggest advantages that we have, House of the Dragon is an example of that, Game of Thrones, taking advantage of Sex and the City, Lord of the Rings, we still have the right to do Lord of the Rings movies, Zaslav added. What are the movies that have brands that are understood and loved everywhere in the world? So again, more of the same. At the same time, this is a lot of fluff speaking because this is a call, he wants to improve the stock and everything like that, because as you may have heard, it's just been going like this, and then it kind of went up a little bit, but then after this call it went again. So I say fluff speaking, but obviously Zaslav is meaning what he's saying, because he wants to make Warner Brothers Discovery very profitable, and they've got a lot of money to shave, over billions and whatnot. So that's all to do with what we've discussed before, cutting shows, canceling shows, movies, Batgirl, and everything like that, and only accepting things after passing on so many other projects for HBO Max that they feel will be the most profitable. David Zaslav also said this about James Gunn and Peter Safran and how they have a powerful vision and blueprint that will drive a more unified creative approach for DC. So let me know what you think about this. It's not a massive update. I just wanted to kind of connect it to the Westworld story. David Zaslav's focus on only making content that is very profitable. But in some more positive news, we've got the Sandman Season 2, baby. I'm so happy about that. The only reason I'm quite happy, because why didn't you expect it already, Boba? I half did, but with Netflix, you never know. Netflix it's kind of a weird thing. It's the situation of when you're watching The Sandman, if you're a current viewer of Netflix with a subscription that has been subscribed as long as I have or whatever, they don't really count you as a contributor towards this season getting renewed. When they release a show like The Sandman, or any new show for that matter, the reason why Netflix can be quite infamous with its cancellations when seemingly a show or whatever has quite a fandom behind it, for them, their business algorithm, if you will, is like how many people subscribed to watch this. Not existing people, because clearly it shows a pattern of how Boba Talks has been subscribed for X amount of months or years, so that didn't really change anything with this. We're just offering him more content, that's cool, but if we cancel it, he's still likely going to continue on subscribing because he's been subscribed all this time. So that's why there's such pressure and fear when it comes to a new show that looks really cool like The Sandman, because their metric can be pretty cutthroat. And I do get it, business is business at the end of the day, but when it comes down to looking at how many people came on since Sandman, how many of those new users also watched The Sandman, also taking into account maybe members who have only been subscribed for a couple of months, and did they watch The Sandman and did they cancel straight afterwards, or did it keep them going for a little bit longer? I don't know obviously every layer of that, but that is the gist of it. So it is very refreshing and kind of relieved to know that The Sandman Season 2 is indeed coming. The Twitter page says as follows: yes, it's true, The Sandman will return to Netflix, says Neil Gaiman. There are some astonishing stories waiting for Morpheus and the rest of them. Now it's time to get back to work. There's a family meal ahead after all, and Lucifer is waiting for Morpheus to return to hell. And that is true. What they teased there about the family meal, that is regarding the Endless. I don't want to get into major spoilers here, but that is something to look forward to. Morpheus' dream, going back to hell to meet Lucifer, is also a very interesting jumping point to what falls into Dream's lap, so to speak. However, I am still very intrigued what they might do differently, because the ending of Season 1, which I do feel comfortable talking about right now, introduced that little scene with Azazel and Lucifer. So I don't know if they're going to go a little bit of a different direction to keep Gwendolyn Christie's Lucifer very much so in the show, but after what happens from this moment onwards, well, let's just say Dream and Hell have quite an interesting future together, and Lucifer takes a bit of a sabbatical, as seen in the Lucifer show on Netflix, even though they're very different, adaptations, if you will. But yeah, very excited about this. Look for a video in the coming days or weeks with regards to Sandman Season 2 and where this can go in terms of me breaking down what happens next in the source material. I think that'd be a pretty fun video to make. Let me know if you want to see something like that. All right, so lastly, let's talk about Nexstar's acquisition of the CW, because I get a lot of people asking me, especially amongst the recent reports that maybe you're seeing on screen right now. We've had some more additional comments of the future. The kind of history behind this is interesting and something I don't think everyone fully understands, so we're going to run through that a teeny bit. But the main thing is, should we be worried about the future? Like, what about Superman and Lois? And that answer I can't be entirely sure about right now, but there are a few indications. But no matter what, a line can be drawn in the sand that the CW network is just not as you remember it. And not to mention, this is all also being fueled a little bit, the fan apprehension, if you will, by the cancellation of Stargirl and other decisions. People are a bit concerned about the future of Superman and Lois, and as to why this whole network is getting a bit more of a shift in its direction. So first of all, let's get into a little bit of history here, very quickly running over this. The CW, as you know it, whether you're watching Flash and Arrow, back in the day in its first few seasons, going up to really just a couple of years ago, it was never a profitable company or network, should I say, in of itself. The way they made their money is through distributing these shows out to other places, other countries. So for example, there was a massive shite ton of money to be made on airing CW shows in the UK on Netflix. So that means Netflix had to pay the CW and thus get profit for Warner Brothers at the time through doing that. So it was kind of like a, constant wheel that was turning like that. But the CW itself didn't actually make money. It made money through doing things like that in other countries. Now, this is where the Hollywood Reporter says, with the emergence of their respected streamers, HBO Max and Paramount Plus, both studios opted to end its $1 billion output deal with Netflix as well as keep international rights. With both revenue streams having dried up and the price of its formerly lower budget originals rising amid pandemic-related costs and demand for top stars and showrunners, Paramount-backed CBS Studios and Warner Media Discovery's Warner's opted to abandon the CW, which is another important part of the story. With HBO Max rising, they're obviously in a competitive market, so they didn't want to necessarily distribute shows like Flash or Nancy Drew to Netflix anymore because they want to elevate their own streaming service up. But again, this made the CW, it's like, oh, that was a big cash cow for us, so like we're even less, profitable. And now the Nexstar have come in, and it's like, oh, how do we actually turn this thing that was never profitable into something that is profitable for our company, Nexstar? And that's where this massive shift is coming in, and why they're thinking, hey, do we really want to pay so much in licensing for these characters like Superman or The Flash and whatnot, even though The Flash is ending anyway next season, to continue on in shows, especially when our demographic for the audience is like 58 years old. This is where it gets a bit convoluted, but as a result of all of this, the new Nexstar approach was teased by Brad Schwartz recently in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. So he went on to say, we need to run a profitable broadcast network, and it's going to take a bit of reinvention and rethinking to create a brand with content that brings in a lot of audience, that works for the stations and can be monetized properly. It's an exciting new challenge. It's a complete rethinking. All the other broadcast networks are profitable, so we have to think about how to make this one profitable. To hear Schwartz tell it, the CW will need to be scrappy and nimble going forward with programming that makes money for Nexstar. The CW is looking to dramatically lower the licensing fees that they pay to studios, both Warner's and CBS, as well as outside buyers, per Schwartz, in an effort to make programming profitable. It's not good for the creative community. One studio source tells The Hollywood Reporter of Nexstar's CW intentions. The network as we know it is gone. So their idea of making things profitable is obviously cutting quite a few things like Stargirl and various other shows. This may be slightly confusing to some people because it's like, but they've got Gotham Knights coming. Well, that was greenlit by the previous regime, so this is where my speculation comes in with regards to they will keep that going for the first season because, it's being filmed anyway and they may as well air it like Stargirl. But I wouldn't be surprised if some point during the airing, maybe even with Superman and Lois, they might be like, okay, so we brought this to you, but, several months from now, they might be like, but we're not renewing it for season 2, like Naomi, for example. But with Gotham Knights, they don't have as many expensive characters to license there, so they could keep that going. For example, the main character, who's a bit of like a Robin, somewhat rip-off, as some people say, is an original character. A few of them are. They've got some characters like Harvey Dent in there. Batman isn't really even being used because he gets murdered in the first episode, so they might be able to keep that going. But the concern here is for shows like Superman and Lois, because Nexstar, as they've said here, they want to lower the licensing costs for their shows and whatnot, but you've got a show on your network that involves the Superman, which is one of the biggest characters and probably most expensive to acquire the license for to keep fueling your show. So Superman and Lois, it could indeed still have a future. This could be a similar situation to Stargirl, where season 3 releases, they air several episodes, but only then, 5-ish months from now, or give or take, or whenever it comes out and a few episodes are out, they might be like, yeah, we're not renewing it for season 4. But they might still keep the license for the character, but still try keep a show as popular as Superman and Lois on the CW network, even though they're really remodeling things. Keep 1 or 2 scripted things, such as Gotham Knights, such as Superman and Lois, but they could reduce the episodes to an even shorter amount to save money. But again, it still doesn't incur the best reassuring feeling for the future of the CW. However, it goes on to say here, Schwartz, a self-professed CW fanboy who starts November 7th, has hope that the CW will continue to be a home for originals like Walker and Superman and Lois, both shows along with All American and its Homecoming spin-off, Kung Fu, Gotham Knights, Walker Independence, and Supernatural prequel The Winchesters are all officially square on the bubble. So in conclusion here, it's certainly an interesting space no matter what. everyone can draw the conclusion that the CW is dead in terms of the CW that you knew it when it was the CW DC universe side of things. Sure, there may be some CW DC shows that continue, but it won't be in the same number ever again. And also, as for the current future of shows that we want to see continue, like Superman and Lois, it's still very much so up in the air. They could find a way of continuing it and making it profitable, as I said, but this would most certainly result in a reduction of things at some degree, maybe fewer episodes, maybe a little bit of a less budget, because the license for the show, or should I say the character for Superman, they might want to keep on their network to bring maybe some of the younger demographic in, even though they're catering on this new Nexstar CW to a 58-year-old market, if you will. They still might be like, okay, we want to keep it going, but there might be some cost cutting there. But I do want to make it clear, it's not over yet for Superman and Lois, but no matter what, I wouldn't hold your breath. It kind of reminds me, and I know it's a pessimistic quote to say from MJ in Spider-Man, saying something like, expect disappointment and you will never be disappointed. That honestly is the approach I would say with Superman and Lois with regards to the next 6 to 8 months. Now, that doesn't mean, by the way, that Nexstar can't find things like, hey, we're going to still distribute Superman and Lois out here, and over there in certain areas so they can still make money to help fund the seasons and whatnot. But it's just a bit more of a spottier place right now. So that more or less ends this video. I would love to know your thoughts on that. How do you feel about the Nexstar acquisition and their approach to things? But also, what about Westworld? Were you a Westworld fan? Let me know what you think of Zaslav's comments, and of course, The Sandman Season 2. Would really appreciate a like, as always, guys, especially if you got this far. I really appreciate those of you who got this far. I know these videos are long. There's a lot of rambling with each story, but I do enjoy doing deep dives. Do consider subscribing for more news breakdowns just like this, reviews, recaps, and all kinds of other things. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, and by the way, to any Titans fans who have got this far, I'm going to do a breakdown on that trailer, likely Monday, the really spoilery trailer, just in case there's anyone wondering about that, because I've got quite a few comments. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of all the universes out there in the next video. Goodbye.